play the key. Don't.
Thank you.
I am here.
I know.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our December 16th, 2025 9 a.m. board briefing meeting, our last board briefing meeting of the year. It's hard to believe. Crazy as that. We do have a busy agenda today, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. Commissioner Kearns is on Zoom. And we'll go ahead and get started with Lindsay.
Good morning, commissioners. So about a year ago, when we took over the transfer stations, I gave Lindsay and her predecessor one directive, which was don't change anything for a year. So she made it 1 month past the year, and as the team has come up with some pretty cool plans and wanted to bring this in front of you and get your thoughts on potential change to how we handle household hazardous waste at our 2 transfer stations.
Thank you for the time this morning. I really appreciate it. And what better way to start off the day than coffee and household hazardous waste? So we call it
About the same.
we call it HHW for short. And Kyle's right. When we started operations, this was one area where we didn't want to make a change because of the nature of the waste that we're dealing with. It's hazardous, it's dangerous, it's chemicals. And so what this allowed us to do in this last year is really think through what is the best way to deal with this. And so what we're doing right now is we put an RFP out, and Graymar Environmental, it's our current contractor, and they came on site at both of our transfer stations, and they provide 2 laborers, 2 staff people on site for Saturdays and Sundays. What they do is they accept chemicals from customers who drive in, they sort those into the various areas. So they segregate them into flammables and oxidizers, acids, bases. And then they also pack them into usually 55-gallon drums or larger containers with purpose around them. And then they handle the transport and disposal of those chemicals. They do a great job. We really enjoy working with Graymar. We really have no complaints. But just to give you an idea of what HHW is, it's light bulbs and batteries, paints, stains, fertilizers, herbicides, flammables, oils, antifreeze, pool chemicals, cleaners, anything that you can find under the kitchen sink or in your garage is likely an HHW. This service is free to residents on the weekends. And that's been some of our problem, and not just this last year, but over the last 10 years, is we do get customers who come in on the weekdays and we have to turn them away. And that has led to, some angry customers, and rightfully so. If I'm bringing a clean out from my Uncle Mike's shed and I'm coming in on a Wednesday because that's the day I had off, and then I'm being told I have to wait 3 days to bring it in to finish the job, that's frustrating. So I empathize with those customers.
The general rule of thumb in the industry is that if you turn somebody away with HHW, they're going to dispose of it improperly.
And that is one of the problems that we're having. So next slide, Ron. So we have actually installed cameras on our tipping floors, and we did that shortly before we took over operations. And so we've been able to actually do a better job of documenting how many times people are coming and disposing of chemicals on our tipping floor. Most of these happen during the week, but there are some that happen on the weekends because people just don't know that the service is available. So what we're seeing on the tipping floor is about 5 to 10 times per day at our sites. Customers are coming and they're either dumping items like batteries and flares, or they're hiding chemicals in boxes because they don't want to wait. They don't want to make the extra. That's a lot of risk. That puts our staff at risk. I mean, those are my employees. They're your employees. They have families. They have friends in this. They work in this. It also puts our customers at risk. They don't know what they're dumping, or they're putting the customer who's unloading next to them at risk. We have had chemical and battery fires that have caused facility damage. Closure of facilities, we had one this spring that closed our transfer station for half a day. And lastly, our solid waste handling permit doesn't actually allow HHW on the tipping floor. So when we get those materials on the tipping floor, it could be seen as a violation of our handling permit. And then our transportation and disposal contracts also do not allow for HHW. So we do screen, we ask people when they come through the scales, hey, do you have batteries? Do you have chemicals? We don't allow them on the tipping floor, but as you can tell, that message really isn't getting through, or people don't want to hear it. So I put together a small short compilation just so you guys can see what our staff are having to work through. Ron, if you can start that video. These are just snippets. I have a whole library full of these examples of what our staff are having to work through. And I'll be the narrator on this for you guys, unfortunately. So there's an individual down here. This is the North Transfer Station. He has a box at the bottom there, and he unloads it from his pickup, and it drops on the floor, and there's 3 bottles of muriatic acid, and one of them breaks open and spills all over the floor. Instead of contacting someone or saying, hey, I've got a spill, he puts a bucket there, a trash bag to cover it up. And he actually splashed his pants in this, so I would be shocked if he doesn't have an acid burn on those pants. Up there in the right corner, you can see one of our staff members doing a safety check. When there's space, they will walk through the garbage and look for items. In this case, he finds 2 gallons of weed killer, comes out and then sets them aside in a safe area. I said earlier that most of these are happening on the weekdays. This couple is actually coming in on a Saturday morning. They unload their load, they pull away, and a staff member comes up to investigate because one of the kind of the red flags is if you have a container like a drum and it has things in it, it's just a red flag for items. And sure enough, there's chemicals. So you saw a radio to the scale house staff saying, hey, can you turn that customer around? We'd like to just educate them on, hey, chemicals don't belong. So in this case, it was one of those ignorant situations where they didn't know that they could take HHW for free to a different area of our transfer station. So again, here's another one up in the corner there. Someone dropped off a couch, and then underneath a blanket, they hid a couple containers of chemicals. In these situations, it's kind of tricky for our operators because while they see that one, what's underneath the couch or what's underneath the cushions. So when you find one, it's usually indicative that there's more. So it requires some further investigation and halting of operations. This individual throws out a large gray tote that's full of chemicals and small household appliances. He's watching for if he's being watched. So he's watching for staff to turn their backs, and then he brings out 4 canisters of coolant and then proceeds to walk back and then hide them in a cardboard box. And then again, just takes a kind of a quick look and makes sure no one's watching, and then proceeds to drive away. These 2 individuals just got done unloading their clean green from their trailer, and he pulls out, again, you can see them watching to see if they're being watched, and then he grabs used oil and then sets it by the pillar of our transfer station. Obviously does not belong there, and then proceeds to drive away, leaving the used oil right by the clean grain area. These 2 individuals have been unloading garbage for about 5 or 10 minutes from the side doors in the back. And then the individual with the black shirt on starts to grab something out of the back of the vehicle. And then he does a very good job of placing it strategically in the middle of that pile. And then they start to put the bags very specifically in places along the garbage. And then at the end, you'll see that big absorbent pad they place over the top because there's a leak. And these 2 individuals dropped off 4 garbage bags of oil. that then proceeded to make a very big mess. And this customer was like, hey, there's something leaking. So our staff member came and ended up having to use several whole kits of absorbent, basically kitty litter type material. To stop the leak, and once the customer in the white van left, it was a huge mess. It took about an hour to actually clean up, and then, yeah, this is the last one. Southern North Transfer Station, the loader runs over a flare, and the flare does its thing. The loader operator does exactly as he's supposed to. He backs away, parks the loader, gets out with a fire extinguisher, and then goes and extinguishes the last of the flame. Operations are called off. Nobody else can back in. They do an investigation. But again, they ran over one. So how many more are in the pile? So then it stops operations once again. So again, this is happening 5 to 10 times per day, usually not a flare, but it's just trying to find those chemicals. And then this is just an example of there's something that is leaking, but you don't know what it is. So our staff are having to go and investigate and be chemists essentially to figure out, is it oil, is it antifreeze, is it a juice box? And you just don't quite know. So Ron, you can go back to the slideshow. So we are seeing prevalent dumping of HHW on tipping floors. I don't think that we're seeing a increase over past years. We're just able to document it better because of the cameras and because of our staff's attention and ownership. So we looked at this from a cost analysis perspective, and the first line up there is what we're doing with Graymark currently. That's the status quo. And at the end of this year, we're looking to spend about $685,000. If we were to have Graymark come in and do what they do 7 days a week, it would cost about 1.4 million, which is expensive. But in having conversations with staff and having staff visit and talk with other counties and cities who are doing HHW in-house, we think we have a great solution of having in-house county staff run HHW, and we would have one person there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then we would have the recycling attendant cover HHW as well for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we think we can do this at a cost neutral or possibly even savings. And along with this, along with this option, we would roll out a very big education outreach campaign. It's one thing to say, to have an education outreach campaign and say, hey, you can drop this off for free on Saturdays and Sundays, but we feel it's going to be much more effective when we can say, you can drop this off for free 7 days a week, bring it to us, it's free, we just need it put over here and not in your garbage. And then cherry on top would be the next slide. This is something we're currently investigating, but we wouldn't roll out right away. It's the option of doing a reuse table for HHW. So in addition to having it 7 days a week, we would mimic other counties and cities like the city of Spokane who offer a reuse table for chemicals that are in good condition or unopened. So actually wouldn't believe the amount of cleaning supplies that come to us having imported, we're just cleaning out the garage shed. So there's these type of chemicals that can be used safely, and we've been working with risk management on what that protocol would look like for a customer coming in and taking something with them. Or we would work with nonprofits to have several nonprofits who are either in the business of providing temporary housing or housing, and they need cleaning supplies. So there's a bunch of different options we can pursue, but again, this is kind of the cherry on top where we can see additional savings and also fall in line with our waste reduction efforts. Next slide. So what I'm asking for today is really just a little bit of discussion and your support on moving forward to offer a more robust service at a cost neutral perspective.
Likely a savings.
I'm looking at the two slides. I'm just trying to figure out. So what do you anticipate the cost of doing both for sure?
Both transfer stations.
No, to both your, so you've got doing the 7 days a week and the outreach. And then the next slide is the reuse table. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out between those two, if you do, what is the actual cost, do you think?
So
And how did, does it get included in the rates? Because we didn't put it into the rates this year, obviously. But how do we look at that?
So we would be transitioning out of the Graymar contract, and we would still be utilizing them for transport disposal, but we would take over the staffing. So just at the staff level, it's a savings of over $100,000.
Okay.
So in both those slides, what we anticipate is additional transport disposal costs because A, they'll have to come to the site, but B, we expect more material if we're doing our job better. And then so that's why we think it's about a 7% cost savings, accounting for additional transport disposal costs. We put in another 60 grand, so another 15% on transport disposal. But we save that 100 grand on the labor. So we're still at a cost savings. If we can implement the reuse component to it, that just brings the transport disposal down because they're moving less material and packaging off site. So that's where if we can take that volume of material and instead of paying Graymar to package and dispose of it, we can get it back into the community and just additional savings. So that's where we could even see it go down. So if the board chooses to implement this, we can do this at cost neutral and likely a cost savings. And then we're hoping maybe by summertime, we could have the reuse component up and running, and then we'll see even greater saving.
Thank you. Sorry, these
Yeah, it's a little
numbers were,
wonky in the
okay.
tables. So just wanted to see if the board would like us to go this route. I think from a cost standpoint, it's a safe bet. We don't have to mess with rates or anything along those lines. And really the big win is the customer service component, the safety, the environmental side of this. There's just a lot of wins if we go to 7 day a week HHW, stop turning people away, and then have a safer tipping floor without ignorant or mischievous disposal of HHW on the floor.
Seems like a good proposal. Offer it every day and hopefully do some more education. I think it's a great idea.
If you put it in the right place, you don't even have to pay for it. It's a great deal.
Exactly. Because again, I think if you're gonna do the outreach and then make it easier for people to understand, stop here and drop your stuff off here. Lighten your load, pay that. Yeah.
Another option, we are going to explore it. We'll have to see how it works out logistically, but actually Scott had borrowed an idea from, I think it's one of Kootenai's transfer stations where the most common HHW items, they actually have a bin right there on the tipping floor to divert those. So you don't even have to go to the other location. So we're gonna see if we can pull that off logistically with just the way the site is laid out, but just another idea we might try to implement.
Good idea. I just have to, getting all into it. Look at it's okay. And definitely having it some days. Because if somebody is being honest and you're trying to, that's true.
Some kids don't like it.
Yeah.
We have one more item for you this morning, just a quickie.
And this one is the local solid waste financial assistance grant. It's actually on your legislative agenda for this afternoon. It's item 5J. This grant we've been receiving from the state since we took over administration of the regional solid waste system back in 2014. So it's a grant that we receive biennially, and it funds waste reduction efforts. So it has to be used for waste reduction. It cannot be used to cover our disposal costs or anything like that. So we typically break it out into 3 tasks. There's HHW disposal and education, which we could very much use some of this money in 2026 for an extended HHW education outreach campaign. And then we also use it for organics disposal and education as well as recycling. And then the term is July 2025 through June 2027. This year's is basically the same amount as the last two bienniums. We receive about 1.1 million with that includes about 250,000 of our own county match. So Ecology brings to the table around 850,000. We bring the 25% cost match. Questions on that one? Don't take note of funding.
Exactly.
Hey,
Okay. Thank you.
thank
Hey.
you.
Appreciate it.
And apologies, commissioners, just due to the timing of meetings, I think we had to put on the list so we could submit it by year end. So apologize for the briefing.
Those things happen as we get close to year end, so great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We got a couple of things on the agenda today. The first one that I wanted to bring before the commissioners is the advisory committee, the Housing Community Development Advisory Committee met last Thursday to review applications that were received for the service navigator position for the disaster recovery for Oregon Gray Road fires. The advisory committee recommended the long-term recovery group as the recipient of those funds. That's just over $2 million. That is not on your legislative agenda because we do not have the grants from HUD at this time. So we received on Friday this last week, we received those letters from HUD. So we have those will be on your legislative agenda when you come back from the holidays. And then after that, HUD will go through their process, and then we'll eventually receive that line of credit. So once we receive that line of credit, then we'll execute that contract. So you'll see that on a future BOCC meeting that will likely take place sometime in January, February. So that's the update on that one. The next one that we want to give you an update on is just kind of where we're at with the disaster recovery grants. We've been talking with Commissioner French and Commissioner Kearns pretty regularly about the progress that we're making on this, and we got this on the agenda before we received the letters from HUD. So we had to do several things before we could even get the letters from HUD to be able to enter into contracts. So similar to the CDBG home ESG grants that you all will be approving by resolution this afternoon. We received those letters for the disaster recovery grant. Those will be on your January 6th agenda for authorization and approval. After that, we submit and get the line of credit. What we wanted to update you on is just some of the progress we've made in regards to getting everything submitted. We've got all of our certifications, all of the work that we've been working on since last January has all been authorized and approved by HUD. And so now we're in this waiting period before those funds become available. It's come to our attention that the commissioners received a letter from the long-term recovery group yesterday. And so I've been working with Jeff, Heather, the commissioners, Commissioner French and Kearns, talking about trying to problem solve and find ways to be able to help out where we can. One thing that we cannot do is use disaster recovery funds right now for the needs that were identified in that letter. So that we can't do. But we do have other funds that are available through document recording fees. So if you think back to when we came before you, I think it was in April of this year with a $40,000 request to help the long-term recovery group get across the finish line on their first 8 homes. We use the document recording fees for that $40,000 to be able to help them with their budget needs. So what we think we can do is, and we feel that we've got budget capacity, we can help out the long-term recovery group with some of those document recording fees. We have, as I mentioned in my budget presentation last month, we have strategic reserves in place. Those strategic reserves take us quite a while to build up because we don't get as much money in the affordable housing document recording fees. We get more through our homeless services. We are preparing to release a request for proposal that will include affordable housing funds as well as disaster recovery funds. So we don't have a line of credit. We're preparing to release those on January 6th for a formal standard housing and community development request for proposal process that will go through February 20th. If we use these document recording fees specifically set aside for affordable housing, that would just take some of that money out of the pool that we put out into the community for affordable housing development. So we don't have more money, we would just deduct from what we were intending to put out into the community. So we know the long-term recovery group in their letter requested $350,000. We don't feel like we have that type of capacity. But we feel like we have the capacity to be able to match the Anovia's $200,000 commitment that was made in that letter. So what I'm coming to you all, Board of County Commissioners, with is we feel like we can help them out with their urgent need up to $200,000. And that we would need to work out exactly what we'll be paying for with that, because we're not sure what receipts remain and what the costs are moving forward for the particular items. So we'll need to work out details on that, but what we're presenting to the commissioners is up to $200,000 from local document recording fees to be able to help out the long-term recovery group as outlined in the letter that was sent. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, comments.
So Commissioner Kearns and I have met with George a couple times and have worked through the challenges and as recently as yesterday. And our request direction was help find a solution. So we're getting in solution mode to try and not only address the current needs, but also continue the efforts to rebuild some of these homes in the next couple of years and stuff. So that's kind of the message we sent. George has been very responsive to it, and so we will find a path, make it happen.
So what funding was originally identified for the project? Or did it just run out earlier than anticipated, or? I'm just trying to understand. I think it's great that there's all these groups that are volunteering and helping out, keeping the costs down. I was just trying to understand where were the dollars coming from, or was there just like a shortfall, or?
Yeah, I think that's
So I think Molly and Shelley are here, so
yeah.
maybe you guys can use.
Just that question, it's the timing.
Oh, okay.
For until, because the county received the $44 million from the federal government to help with the disaster recovery, but the timing from when the dollars are available through the county over cost reconstruction, and we put up dollars to the Novia Foundation to this past year. You'll see the letter, $750,000 to actually, so that the community wouldn't have to wait, and those families wouldn't have to wait to start the building process. But this time, it's just taken a lot longer, and so now we're at a time that there's this gap, and we don't have the funds to be able to put it up to cover the gap until the process is and the dollars become the community. So what we've asked, and we appreciate you coming up with the solution, is like help cover that gap until we get through the process and the HUD dollars become available for the community.
just to clarify, so I thought I heard you say the funding can't be used for this, but you mean the funding hasn't come in yet?
Correct, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I got confused about
We-
that. Okay.
Yeah, we do not have any of the disaster recovery funds that we have right now are specifically earmarked for the administration of the
Right.
grant. But we do not have the other $42 million. Those are the funds that will come to your January 6th meeting. So it's a wonky grant, how it rolls out. It has taken us a while. Per HUD and the technical assistance provider, it usually takes most communities 18 months to get to this point, and we're at this point in less than 12. So the team's done a phenomenal job, really prioritized and put this on the front burner throughout ever since we got the award. So it does take time, but it's been dang hard.
So you won't be able to reimburse the document recording fees later with the funds, okay?
The likelihood is not, because this is still CDBG funds. There are waivers and things that we can go for, but all of the things we've already been discussing, the issues surrounding our CDBG home and ESG contracts with all the language in it. This is all in our CDBG DR agreement as well. So that will all have to go out through competitive RFP. We can't bypass that process. We still have to follow all of 2 CFR Part 200. We still have to follow department and audit. Our subrecipients have to do all that same stuff. And now we have all these additional executive orders that we have to include as well, until there is something stopping those. So trying to do reimbursement after the fact is just not potential.
I think one important note on this is it would be the same requirements as what we had in our original $40,000 agreement with the long-term recovery group, which means it's reimbursement only. Has to be for eligible costs. We have to have eligible individuals that are getting these homes, etc. All things that are pretty easy to achieve, but it is not front-loaded grant money. It is reimbursement, and it has to meet our minimum eligibility thresholds. So want to point that out as well.
Yeah, the good news is the money is there. The bad news is you got to jump through a series of hoops to get to it. And like George said, you know, some of that, you know, we just got the letters from HUD last week. So it's frustrating. But you know, I think Commissioner Kearns and I, you know, I know that staff is very invested in trying to find a solution. So we are here to stand with them to try and find a solution to make this work. So
So the proposal is 200,000 from document recording fees to match Anovia's.
yes,
Okay,
that will relieve some of the stress. Doesn't get rid of all of it yet.
right. Okay, well, I would be supportive of that. I think it would be great to get a update soon on how much funding we have in that fund. Our document recording fees, because they're very flexible. And be good to make sure we're using them.
Yeah, and I do want to point out what we're doing, both with the 40,000 and this 200,000. This is not what we do. We typically have competitive procurement processes that are fair and equitable to the entirety of the community. We've got affordable housing providers that are clamoring for funds to develop projects that are looking for gap funding to meet some of the housing trust fund and other funding opportunities. So these funds go a long way towards making additional units of affordable housing. So our preference is always to go through a formal competitive process, that when a recommendation comes to you all as Florida County Commissioners, it's coming through an advisory committee that has taken an unbiased look at it, and that it's not staff coming to you with a recommendation of how funds should be appropriated. So this is unprecedented, not something that we want to do, but we also acknowledge the situation.
you know, we don't always have these emergencies in our community that require us to do extraordinary things, so. So I agree, I mean, I'm gonna be in favor of it, because of the nature of what has happened, devastation that did occur, so.
Something
It's still
else.
going for the same purpose of trying to help get these people who can't afford it back into their homes.
So just once the DR money is kind of unlocked. These types of needs could be eligible.
Correct.
Depending on the income of the recipient, correct?
Yes, yeah, these funds will be available to respond to both the Oregon and Gray Road fires. What capacity that looks like, et cetera. We released the request for proposal also included a request for interest. And in that request for interest, we received 40 different submissions totaling over $67 million worth of asks. That included 2 national housing developers that come in and do development of housing after disasters. So part of that RFI was really to see who's out there and see if we need to do additional solicitations. Kind of, we're trying to get things rolling before we got the line of credit and everything else, so we were able to hit the ground running. So that RFI was able to really help us understand what's out there. And hopefully we'll get a great response once we put out the formal request for proposal in January.
So just on the time frame, sorry if you said this, but what is, as you look at next year, what month would you estimate is kind of, we're really making decisions about allocating big chunks of those dollars?
Yeah.
Get them out.
My anticipation that will take place will be coming to you all mid to late April with recommendations from the request for proposal process. So if we're coming to you all in mid to late April, then contracting will likely occur sometime in May. And depending on contract negotiations, et cetera, May, June is probably when we'll be able to get the first reimbursements coming in.
Mr. Kurtz.
No, I think this is a great idea. I will certainly support it. I guess my question is this something we have to take an action on? Can this just be done by head nod? Or is this something we need to do by leave at 2:00 today? I support it. I want to get the ball rolling. Just want to make sure that, I know the letter that we received yesterday made it sound like we're up against a timeline. I just want to make sure we have everything moving in the right direction to meet that timeline. So the process, I guess, is what I'm asking about on allocating the dollars.
Solution, 200,000, so you have to be by leave today.
Not sure you could hear that, but it sounds like a by leave resolution today would be the safest course.
Okay, thank you.
And while we have the cash in the account, we don't have it in our budget for 2025. We have it in our budget for 2026. So I'll work with the budget department on that to make sure that we were able to access those funds.
So do we, I guess I just want to double check, does it have to be done or can it be done on January 6th?
I think if you can make a motion today, even if it comes out of the 2026 budget, what it does is it commits the dollars. And what our building partners need is they need to know that they're not just gonna start, but they're gonna need to be able to finish. And so they're allocating their volunteer resources for the entire year. And what they need to know is that they're not gonna start 1 or 2 houses, but they're actually gonna be able to complete a full year of building, and then that process can kick in, and then they can we'll be able to do building next year.
Yeah, the sense that I've got out of all the conversations is that there is time sensitivity to maintain the efforts that have been going on so far and stuff. So, you know, the board taking an action to reflect that commitment, I think is what they're looking for.
So since we have a special meeting, Amanda and Asher on Thursday, can we do this as a second topic of the special meeting? I'll give
Absolutely.
you time to put a resolution together.
There'll definitely be more time
Yes.
and more notice for everybody.
Yeah, and so then we don't have to do open up for public comment and all of that. We can just do it on a special meeting.
Yeah, good idea.
So let's do that. We will add this to Thursday's special meeting, so we'll have 2 items on that special meeting. Notice. So I won't sign this one right now.
Sounds great. Thanks for all the work on it, Commissioner Branch and Kearns and George and Heather, and thank you, Innovia Foundation, for your support.
Yeah, no, and a big thank you to, commissioners for your support, to George and his team for, all the work that you guys are doing. I know it's arduous process to go through, and just appreciate you recognizing right now for that. And so appreciate everyone.
And I'll keep the kudos flowing by saying thank you to Commissioner French and Commissioner Kearns for their patience and working through this and offering the guidance. Really appreciate both of them. They're mindful of their constituents and have done an excellent job of helping navigate that. And I'm also going to call out Jeff and Heather for spending some time with me last night working through different solutions and opportunities. So thanks everyone.
The last call that I have is just there has been some conversation flowing about whether either this information can be done through either a new declaration of emergency, and that isn't possible. We've specifically been told by HUD that that would be frowned upon and could be seen as actually improper use of the fund. So we cannot do a new declaration of emergency for this work.
I'm sorry, I just had a question on the previous item. In the packet, is there a finalist for the Navigator?
Yeah, that's the long-term recovery group.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I saw the RFP and all the information, but okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Much as we want to listen to solid waste and other things, we're gonna appreciate your time today.
Oh, wait.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys being here to answer the questions. Josh, how are you doing this morning?
Doing well.
Good.
Doesn't need more coffee on a Tuesday, right?
Exactly.
I'm here on behalf of Tim in the clerk's office to request approval on the resolution for the renewal of our e-filing contract with I3 Verticals. Just a little bit of information about the system in general. As of our November data collection, this system is responsible for about 26% of our filings in the court system. To put a number to that, that's about 10,000 documents or so per month. And while that number is impressive, we do plan on a significant increase in coming year for total filings. Our prior contract was a 5-year period, and this renewal will be for an additional 5 years. We've had the contract reviewed and approved by legal, purchasing, and risk management. And our 2026 approved budget request does include the dollar amount to cover this particular item. So on behalf of the clerk's office, I'm asking the board to approve the resolution for project 25-2570, which should be on the agenda later today at 2 under item 5A. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm sorry, you said 5.
AA, I believe.
AA.
Sounds like a pretty important program.
Very much so. We're very proud of the growth that it's achieved since its implementation. It's an item that helps us not only keep up with the times, but it be able to also address a much wider scope. Just to put in perspective and how much and how many documents are actually received by the clerk's office. In 2022, we were approximately 455,000 documents. For the course of the year, we ended 2024 at just shy of 500,000 documents. So nearly a 50,000 document increase. days. And again, those aren't pages, those are actual documents, so a single one could be 20, 30 pages.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the briefing.
Have a nice day.
Okay, you too. Awesome.
Oh, because I've been in there. I've been out 24 hours a day going through discovery. It's attorney on.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, how are you?
It's sunny, so, you know.
There's a lot more happiness abounding about the campus. Now.
Yeah. I'll let you guys go ahead. Commissioner Kearns is on Zoom, so.
Okay. Well, we wanted to take some time.
Mr. Kearns is having.
I need a lot of electricity this month.
I need more than coffee.
Still, I think I have an extra charger for one more device.
High user.
Yeah.
So we wanted to chat with you a little bit about this step forward. When I spoke to you several months ago, we talked about wanting to, in addition to working towards an ECR type, case docket, also address potential pre-filing diversion. Presently, there's some statutory authority that we deal with on the misdemeanor side, where our law enforcement, will bring people to the stabilization center or other places. Those are cases we just don't get or we don't file. When I got appointed on September 10th, that same week, I had assigned one of our senior attorneys to take over the first appearance screening. So these are individuals that have been arrested. And then we make filing decisions on those cases. So one of the tasks that I'd given her was to identify cases that I could potentially go to a pre-filing diversion, assuming we had somewhere to divert them to. And so she's been doing that for the last couple of months and has identified kind of a body of cases or classification of cases that perhaps rather than filing or declining, we could put them, push them towards some services. Services were available that might might result in reduced recidivism. So I was talking with Matt one day. Matt had suggested we reach out to Mr. Johnson. And we did that. So my criminal team got together with him to discuss what could a potential diversion program look like. And this is kind of what we came up with. We do think that it would be a good use of resources. And while it has some humble beginnings, we're not going to have hundreds of cases going through this. This would be an opportunity to test out this type of a model. So I'll just walk you through, kind of the slides and I'll let Mr. Johnson jump in as appropriate to kind of go through this. So obviously it's voluntary. It's pre-filing, which is important to us because that takes off the need to assign it to defense attorneys. It means that we're addressing it really early within the first 12 to 24 hours of arrest. Individuals that would be identified for this program would notify community services, and then we would work on either a release or figure out some sort of warm handoff to community services in order to provide them the information to engage with services. So if we go to the next slide. And again, speaking about pre-filing, right? So obviously we're not grabbing violent offenders, throwing them towards this program. But these are otherwise individuals that if we had an ECR program up and running, we'd be giving them that immediate offer for resolution. However, we don't quite have that figured out just yet. So this would be, another pressure relief valve that we could utilize.
Preston, you covered this a little bit already. You're not grabbing violent offenders and you've got a senior attorney screening these cases. How important is that role?
So in order to be screened for this program, we focused on the idea that we need somebody who's qualified, experienced. The person I presently have doing this is one of our most experienced attorneys in the office. She has done sex crimes, major crimes, drug crimes, been all over. And so I want to have a person of that quality and caliber actually looking at these so that they have both the seasoned experience of a prosecutor, but also an idea of what a case could resolve for, but also have a sense of if this was filed, how long would it take? This particular prosecutor is looking at these cases and she's pretty pragmatic. If we file this, second-degree burglary or whatever the charge is, it might sit in the system for 6 months to a year, or 6 months to 18 months. By that point, we'll have assigned a defense attorney. We'll have a prosecutor working it. It'll have multiple hearings before the court. They might wind up in the jail multiple times with the cost, to the jail. Whereas if we could get them engaged with programming, that Mr. Johnson offers, we will hopefully reduce the impact to the county and reduce the cost to the county. I have no, I guess I'll say naivete surrounding what potential success could be. We've talked about that internally on the criminal team. How do we measure success here? A success for me isn't just engaging them with services. The success will be whether or not we reduce recidivism, whether or not we have people who aren't coming back to the jail. And so that's what would be important to me. If we could go to the next slide.
I'll just add too, this is partly based on some of the work we're already doing with the 5177 prosecutorial diversion program, where the prosecutor's office, both the county, the Superior Court as well as the municipal courts have supported. What we found when it's post-filing as part of the adjudication process, when they refer to us with the 6-month period, which is what this is going to be modeled after, there's been a 75-80% recidivism rate reduction and individual success in the overall program post the 6-month engagement, which again, we can only track them so far afterwards, right, before they come back in, but that has been above what we see on the national average, but it's due entirely upon work on the prosecutor side to screen those in advance and identify who is the most eligible, not only with charges, right, but also with their history and the potential for reoffense or re-engagement based on their potential continued involvement with law enforcement and the criminal legal system. So a lot of this is based on information and programs already in the field running the FDA to back up.
And obviously this request, because there's a request at the end of this, is tied to mental health sales tax. And our hope is that we could capture a portion of those in order to administer this program. And if we could get anywhere near the results like what we're seeing on the 5177, that would be a win because we'd be reducing overall costs, especially on our felony side, which is where the majority of my office's costs are in those types of cases. If we could have the next slide, please. We talked briefly about eligibility criteria. Our position is serious violent offenses, sex offenses would be ineligible for this program. You also have to have a mental health or co-occurring substance use disorder to make you eligible for this. And so we'll be working with pretrial services and obviously obtaining that information as needed. And we select these, cases for the program. In the event folks don't engage with the program, we're going to be back on the traditional prosecution track. Can't compel individuals to do these things, but I think we can provide a decent opportunity. And I believe, Mr. Johnson's team can present all of the benefits and reasons why somebody would want to engage. We could have the next slide.
Quick question on the review of, is that where you're at, the eligibility criteria?
Mm-hmm.
When you say review of prior criminal history, what would you be looking for that would make someone lean towards eligible versus not? It's like a violent history or any history. What do you think?
So violent history or earlier cases where somebody has qualified for a drug sentencing alternative, a mental health sentencing alternative. Or you look at the types of cases. Some of these cases are, for instance, your trespasses, your theft thirds, your cases that show a tendency that you're either supporting a drug habit or having health issues. One might be, we see that in a lot of trespassing cases, various circumstances, but once it gets elevated to a felony, we now have that body of criminal history that we're looking at to say, are they eligible or not? If somebody has prior sex offenses, violent offenses, that would be a disqualifier, for us there. So, thank you, Mike.
So just to clarify, so criminal history per se wouldn't make you ineligible, but it's a look at seriousness and
Correct.
kind of a case by case judgment.
Yes. So it'd be much in the same circumstances when we would review cases for PCR docket, complete case resolution. It's very similar to what we do for either 5177 or current. We're looking at, does your history seem to represent that you could be eligible or be a candidate that would have success? If we could have the next slide, there we go. So referral, experienced prosecutor. We would have the notice of eligibility provided to, the court, the jail. We would have contact with Mr. Johnson's team, figure out what the communication stream looks like. And we'd have to coordinate and work with the jail to make sure that these individuals, as they were getting released, there's some overlap time, ideally, with Mr. Johnson's team, so that we could get them engaged.
Coordinated on-site person-to-person contact. So there isn't a drop from the transition from jail into the community.
So we think there'll be a lot of success with the actual person-person contact. Like, it's not an email you're getting, not a text message. You're actually seeing a live body that says, hey, these are the services that we have that the county already provides. If we can go ahead and get that actual firm engagement, we think, perhaps we can take some of these off the board in other areas. The next slide, we'll talk about program requirements. If we could move that. So we talked about a 6-month cycle. Right now, that's in part due to, I think, limitations on both sides, but also existing programming that we have. There'd be a treatment plan provided to the individual or developed with them. Conditions include no criminal activity, no use or possession of alcohol or non-prescribed drugs, that maintain contact and sign whatever releases are needed to be signed. Obviously, these are the requirements there. We'd be referring heavily to Mr. Johnson's team. There had been a violation or something that is otherwise, not a disqualifier. We'd be relying on that report from community services to, hey, this person actually completed the 6 months successfully, or they did not, or they washed out in X period. Those cases will come back to us to look at a traditional prosecution track.
And that is a minimum. So the 6 month could be extended based on the needs, or if there was a slip up and they were inpatient, because they use substances, usually we would extend that out by another 2 to 3 months. So you actually see these cases extend. The challenge is ensuring that they're in and we can see new ones. You have a revolving number of individuals. It's hard to get new individuals referred if we're consistently having the same 75 or more. It depends on really working with them and ensuring that there is responsive to the need that exists, right? They relapse once, but no other time. It may only be a month. Consistently, it may be 12 months. That's how we adapt.
And the idea here is that we're not just serving the same, as Mr. Johnson said, same 75. We're going to be identifying cases on a weekly basis within our office, making those referrals to community services, and we kind of expect a rolling enrollment process. We'd be relying on their team to let us know, hey, we're at capacity, we can take this amount more, we work through with that. But at a minimum, I want to be identifying cases for both this program, and then eventually, if we're able to get an ECR docket off with our current caseloads and court challenges, these would be the same types of cases that would be getting referred to that docket as well. So that way we have a screening process in place. I got the next slide. So obviously the big benefit is you don't have a felony filed in the event you successfully complete this program. And you're also provided access in a meaningful way to existing mental health and substance use, treatment programming. And again, we've seen a lot of counties have a similar program, but the win for them is measured by, did I actually have somebody in contact with, somebody like Mr. Johnson? There's no actual follow-up or, follow on to see, did they complete a 6-month or a year-long program? And so we're trying to pair more things to this, so that way we actually can measure and come back and report on it. After X amount of time, we saw, a drop, or we saw a success rate, whatever that is. Or it could be an absolute complete failure, and we can measure that too. But my hope is that that's not the case. So.
And the benefit of utilizing the community services existing program, it doesn't cost the county any additional dollars. We utilize resources that already exist. The team is county employees going out and engaging. So they're managed for that 6 months with a direct diversion coordinator and case manager in conjunction with access to our provider network, which is generally how we utilize both, right? We don't do the diagnostic or treatment. We do the management and follow-up to ensure compliance. The provider treated as a treatment because we're connecting with, we have access to all of that information. We don't have to do all these additional work. They're already signed into the program. And then the second aspect is as we bring online other resources within the county, like the Crisis Relief and Sobering Center expansion, STARS, we also have access now to inpatient treatment services that had not been previously available. What we're trying to build here is a more comprehensive network of services that can be immediately referred out instead of, hey, go to this place at this time and hope that things work out.
And so do you feel like there's a space in the community for this, the bed space available, treatment space?
Yeah,
And part of it is, based on her getting our new facility up and running. But it currently is there now.
Yes, not all the individuals will be seeing with immediate inpatient level of care. And so really it's about finding what outpatient or really like a PACT team, comprehensive wraparound service. That's a PACT is assertive community treatment. It's like a whole team of multidisciplinary members that follow you, nurse, a provider, or substance use. So we have access to all of that. And I think in some of those are chronically under utilized because they often go to ER, other service, they refer to an inpatient, and there isn't a connection. That's what we're trying to change with this type of engagement. This is why we've been talking. We've been hearing about expansion of the services. Like we need to better. We have resources available. How do we connect people? This is part of that connection, direct to and with prosecutor's office to ensure that those individuals transitioning from an incarceral setting have an immediate place and a person to follow.
I think some of the things you mentioned touched on the next slide, so we can probably skip past that. Which was, let's see, services delivered. Yep. If we go to the next, addressing non-compliance. As a prosecutor, obviously, I care about a lot on whether or not we're following through. So in terms of non-compliance, again, we'd be relying on Mr. Johnson's team to report back, and then we would have to have an individual ready, willing, and able to file these cases in the event we deemed it necessary, to proceed forward. So it may be that the disqualifying event was a new charge, and we're going to be filing that case anyway, and packaging the old one with it. And I mean, that's going to happen. We will have people that are successful, but we will have people that we're, filing additional cases contemporaneously, and we have to be prepared for that. You'd have the next slide. There will be an additional, administrative function here, which we haven't fully, sussed out, and additional communication, which is going to be time and effort on both community services and the prosecutor's office. And we're, developing and working together with that. I think our teams will communicate well. We already have been. And like Mr. Johnson said a moment ago, we already have a lot of these services in different silos. We're just not communicating with each other or streamlining how we get them to that location. So I think this is a mutually beneficial, endeavor that will reap some long-term benefits all around. We can have the next slide. So in speaking with my criminal team and with community services, I do think that we could realistically start referring cases. We say first quarter 26, but really we mean middle or end of next month. And start referring a number of cases to Mr. Johnson and his team. And in terms of measuring success, I think that's something that we still need to hammer out a little bit on. What's an appropriate time period to go back and look at this? It's not going to be in the first month or two. Might not be in the first 6 months. It might be more realistic as a 7, 8, 9 months, so we can see what do the first 6 months of referrals look like, and then hopefully by the time we're reporting back, we have a sense of do we have successful graduates or folks completed, and have they recidivated? Are they back in the system or not? And so that will ideally give us a time period to test the efficacy of the program. And then
So because, we already have 5177 program established and the data collection is associated with it, we have the tracking already in place. This just expands, enhances. 5177 program is very specific on certain individuals that the Department of Social and Health Services, Office of Forensic Mental Health have considered participants, those that are post-education that are potential for competency. So it's reduction of those, because that was what the state was targeting. This expands that umbrella, so we're still using the same data points, but expanding who's eligible for that. So that's another benefit, utilizing existing data tracking systems to be able to present that information.
And then the next slide. Get a clicker on this.
Yeah.
Obviously, and that brings us to what our request is here. And so we are asking that the board approve mental health sales tax. And we're seeking the board to approve it for a top to bottom attorney 3. And so this would be the attorney presently that's doing the screening of these cases. So she's presently screening all of our first appearance cases. So it's not just this, it's looking at, she's doing DV, domestic violence, property, drugs. And so looking through all of these cases, and then she will be the individual that's also identifying them for refiling in the events that we have to get them kicked back to us in order to take a traditional prosecution track. And so we're asking for, the top to bottom funding for that attorney 3 spot, but candidly, speaking with Mr. Johnson, it may be that 25% or 40% of her salary is what should be covered by that. Then the rest would be apportioned out to legal secretary or the paralegal that's gathering, the information, and then the administrative costs and the communication back and forth. So I do believe that if we were able to, even if we had, I think 75% would be wildly successful looking at the misdemeanor numbers. But when you look at felony cases and what they cost, and that's why I asked Mr. Sparber for a look at the latest, cost amounts. I think if we're contracting outside of the county, class B's and C's are $1,800 a case. And then there's a $200 flat fee for each day of trial associated with that. That does not include the prosecutor cost. It doesn't include the judges, the court staff, and the various hearings. You might have a case that goes 6 months, which would be great, but 12 months to 18 months is fairly typical on a lot of these. That's a lot of attorney hours, a lot of court time. And if they wind up in jail, you add the compounding cost of the jail time with it as well. So even if we had I hate to give it a number, I do think.
I'll give it a number, Preston. So I asked Ashley to run it, and it's about $200,000 is what we're asking for, and that's with the salary, benefits, supervisor increase in pay. And we've looked at it. It's an approved use of the mental health sales tax. We've checked with Jeff and the budget team, and there's room in the mental health sales tax, and we think it's a very appropriate use.
That's very direct.
He's looking for money this party.
But in terms, in terms of savings.
The number keeps going.
In terms of savings to the county though, I do believe that our request would be less than what the county otherwise would pay if we did not do this. So for instance, if we were able to get, 50 to 75 cases engaged, even in that first or second quarter, that, as we play out through the year, we'd be saving more than what we'd be expending on the program.
And Preston, can you talk about the impact? So you're talking about the low-level felony offenders that would qualify, and we're converting them to wraparound services to help them get out of the system. How would that potentially impact the opposite end of the spectrum in the most serious felony cases that your team is prosecuting?
It would free up my people to address the more serious crime. It would free up the system as a whole to prioritize, the more serious crime. That way we're not taking time from, my major crimes, the sex crimes and domestic violence attorneys to, then process these. So it has an impact all the way around, especially in court time as well. When we look at, we've had some cases go to trial that take, a week. And it would be a case that potentially could have gone through something like this first. Frankly, even if it went through a program like this and subsequently got filed, it might, it could cost less than not having a program like this once you pair the successes with, any folks that actually have a failure rate. I do think that, I know everybody's asking for money right now, but I think this is a great use of this money that will have a system-wide impact that'll hit the jail, hit the defense bar, hit the courts, and hit our office in a meaningful way.
And it's a pilot program. We want to give it a shot for a year and then see if it's working or not.
I think it fits right in with what the Safe and Healthy Task Force is trying to do, to come up with ideas that we can do now, as well as what the future looks like. Keep building on those things. So I mean, like a great way to do that. I think this helps as we get what the city and county are doing, with the jail, with trying to, have space available to get people off the streets. That it's not just getting them off the streets, it's like getting them off the streets, but getting them into something. So could that be more beneficial than if they make that decision and being in the jail system? So see, it's good.
I agree. And when you went through your list of cost savings, you didn't explicitly say public defenders too, which is obviously a big topic and that is under a lot of pressure. I was just gonna ask Justin, on your other diversion program, you have one case manager, correct? On the post filing.
Actually, as of January 1st, we won't have any case manager.
Oh, well,
A community provider found out.
Yeah.
They're really great. It's gonna steal our job. However, we have 2 diversion coordinators that we'll be working on. So we did backfill that. We do plan to repost 2 of those case managers. So we'll have a team of 4. Provided we can start the year strong with posting those, yeah.
So, and those are funded through state streams.
Correct, state and Office of Attorney General.
And then when you look at the different options that people would have in the court system, the therapeutic court option is more for a higher risk, higher need type of individual. This is lower risk option. So if somebody came through this program, say they were mostly successful, but ultimately not successful, would those other options be off the table for them, or is that again kind of a judgment call for the prosecutor's office? How do you see that?
So it's always a judgment call for us, but my expectation would be that yes, they would be available, because those I mean, depending on if it's a sentencing alternative, it's post conviction, so that's always available to them, up to the max allowed by the statute. In terms of mental health court, I think we would rely heavily on what's the recommendation here. Was this purely a failure to engage or lingering or whatever the case may be? Or is it, no, they have a legitimate addiction or mental health issue, and those would get screened to our mental health court. But that's again, post filing. So once we've filed, all the other savings kind of come off the table. There's going to be a public defender assigned. There's going to be prosecutor time spent on it and court time. So I still think the mental health court is a great route, because you get the treatment and you get the meaningful supervision. But again, that's the high risk, you need more hands on. And So yeah, it would not be a disqualifier unless we found that there was some sort of, malice or something, and we were relying on community services to let us know, not this person.
Got it. Good. Well, thanks for bringing it forward. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I think it's great that you found someone on your team that is really interested and committed to it, because I think that's the key, right? Someone who can really identify the people that could benefit and work really closely with Justin's team to refer folks. And I mean, I think if we don't have that, it will be a challenge, right?
Right. No, and so we've been blessed in that regard. And again, special thanks to both Nat and Justin and his team for demystifying some of the different communication streams here.
Demystifying. Ooh.
I've seen Justin on Zoom a couple of times, but I had him in my office a week or two ago. And frankly, I don't know that our teams have talked as much as we should have over the last few years.
So I'm going to just ask what I think is kind of the obvious question. So you're asking to use your prosecutor and others for screening.
Correct.
And all of that and some of those. Does this put more burden on community services? And because, you're the other piece of it and we're not asking for funds there, so.
I know, that's part of the selling point here.
Yeah, see, I'm just asking the obvious question.
6 months, I'll come back later.
Yeah.
It'll be not realized. No, it's, we have been looking at expanding this for some time. As I've been telling the board for the last year, it's been a focus of mine to look at new ways for diversion and deflection. Safe and Healthy Task Force is bringing that forward, but we've been working on this for over a year with different aspects of the community. And Matt, I've talked about this for some time. So I've already worked out the pieces on our side and then found additional funding the state has approved me for. So we are looking to build out our team. I just found another money to save the county money. So for us, yeah, we'll make sure that we have the team. I would say right now it is because a little challenging, but with the time we anticipate this to scale up, we should have a team in place, which would sufficiently be, this is not the big thing on my plate right now. Mike's and my project is the one that's really the challenging aspect, but it's gonna slow down here. Anyway, no, shouldn't be an impact to us.
Okay, but you are gonna step up and you've got other funding sources for that.
Yes.
I guess that's what I just needed to know, because we know your team is already overstaffed or overburdened with a lot going on, so I just want to make sure that you've got needs.
Well, since Preston agreed to move forward with this, it's been one of those opportunities that we can't turn away from, especially as we look towards the need to cut costs and the increased aspect of just court judicial costs overall in the near future. This is one amazing way to reduce that, and we can, on our side, do our best to be able to achieve that right now with the staff we have and then build out. So regardless of whether or not I might be taxing it first, I think the long-term payout is totally a benefit to the county.
I assume the court's aware of the plan.
So I haven't spoken to all of the judges as a whole, but I have spoken to several of them. And obviously, it's individuals that they're not going to be seeing, presumably,
Hopefully.
Either beyond first appearance. So I think it's generally well received all over. But in terms of, because it's pre-filed diversion, discretion, it's solely with the prosecutor.
This was the first step. We are planning on going around with all of the other partners, buy-in from the sheriff, the court, pre-trial services. And the chief to this.
Tell me a little bit about what your thinking is around the employment opportunity once they finish all of the training and everything. Do you have employers that are already indicating that they'd be willing to hire these people, or do you just send them out to a employment agency and say good luck?
That's always a challenging aspect, really on a case by case basis for some of the individuals. Some are so chronically mentally ill that they're on social security disability. So the employment aspect is going to be more long term. There's other ones that we work for long periods beyond the 6 months, they go into our Phoenix, and it's another 6 months of transitional housing and support, and then another 6 months of training. So maybe a year and a half. So if they are eligible, we usually push towards that route. Those oftentimes are overwhelmed because of the need that exists in the community, but the option exists and they're open to it. They're immediately referred into that. But we don't have, for a lot of these individuals, the immediacy or for really in their current state of acute behavioral health and substance use arrangement, they are ready to transition immediately into any sort of work program. But that is the process that we try to look at.
So Beaverton, when I visited their program, they had an inventory of about a dozen different employers that were very community oriented and very supportive of the program. And so they offered employment for any graduate. And there was a variety of employers so that, you know, they could fit the job to the person, the individual needs and stuff. And so that was a very successful program. I assume they're still doing it. I don't know. It's been years since I've been by it, but might be worth a phone call to see how they were able to put together that pool of employers. The other one that you might be willing to reach out to is a Union Gospel Mission.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, they would also be a good connection.
We've been working closely with Salvation Army, Goodwill, and UGM on those opportunities. They generally like individuals who are able to walk in and participate, which is the hard part with individuals with psychiatric conditions to be present and stable. But it is something we feel needs to be leveraged to a greater extent.
Right.
The time availability to build up this program and the conference Ray has taken the most focus. That is our next, we'll call it phase 5,
Yeah.
or whatever phase I'm in now for that one.
Okay.
So yeah, very interested in that. We are working with them, just not as defined in our program yet.
I was gonna second the comment. I think there's a real opportunity to grow those pathways throughout the court system. And, you know, whether it's, you have the AGC program, other apprenticeship programs, or employers that are looking to hire people. It seems like the task force could focus on that as a topic, and, you know, maybe there's a court coordinator, a person who could put in some of the legwork to build a little bit of a menu of options for people. But I think you're right on with a gap that we could work on.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a discussion that I've been having with a lot of different entities as well, and frankly, even with our law enforcement partners. You know, what are the, if you make an arrest in the middle of the night, I mean, I had a deputy call me in the middle of the night on a case where they were in Airway Heights. They had a individual that they were arresting, who was, I think, drunk or high, had young kids. I didn't have anywhere to put the kids aside from CPS, didn't have any other things to plug them into. And West Plains, they've got a lot of resources that are unique in terms of, you know, whether it's temporary housing or their victim witness center. So they've been doing a lot in that respect. But some of the discussion that I've been having is, are there, you know, a quick Rolodex or menu of services or even opportunities? My mom was a Job Corps teacher. You know, she did the GED program. There were folks, it used to be that we had a pipeline to, if you're going to go to Job Corps, go to a program like that and get engaged, we could do something with you on, you know, that criminal end. I think, you know, post-COVID, a lot of those relationships have disappeared. But I'd like to reach out and try to recapture some of that. If there's experiential learning or vocational, you know, engagement that we can push people towards, I think everything works better when everyone works. They learn a skill, and so that would be something that I want to look at.
It just seems like that's a great opportunity. And it could be tiered. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the folks you're targeting for this program may have a lot of mental, you know, illness or challenges that make it more challenging. But there's a lot of other folks in the court system that are not in that same situation. So I think it's really important that I'm hoping we'll get some recommendations from the task force about, you know, what's the tiered approach and how does our system support moving folks into those different opportunities.
And how do we create an inviting environment for an employer to come in and say, hey,
Yes.
I'm willing to give you 10 slots or 5 slots or 20 slots. And you know, if we can create those relationships, I think that would bear a lot of fruit. For this program, a lot of the folks that are going to be identified, I mean, we're identifying them first off of a problem cause statement, which means you have some pretty obvious mental health issues presenting themselves, or, you know, you have somebody passed out and high in front of a local business. Well, they've got a substance abuse, you know, disorder that's readily prevalent, but there are other folks that, you know, would benefit from immediate engagement with a different service. And, you know, all with a long-term goal of looking at, making sure we're unencumbering the system elsewhere, because when we need to be able to go after somebody meaningfully and put them in jail or prison, we have the resources to do so. So anyways, thank you for listening to us talk. Obviously, you know, kind of what the ask is, mental health sales dollars
I
for.
think you've got the head nod you need, so we appreciate you guys coming up with the cooperation between to make this work, and look forward to it.
Thank you.
Just answer the phone, friend.
Justin, you're still on next.
I
so-
am, yes. This is gonna be a quick one. This is a correction to my briefing 2 weeks ago. So my apologies. There's a lot of contracts to go through and a lot of names. So there's a minor correction. The information on the developmental disabilities expansion and RFP selection for a new provider. As you know, our contract with the state requires a continuous enrollment process for anyone that's new. These are community inclusion and employment support. We have new providers, and this just adds another one. The funding would not exceed, as I discussed before, $25,000 to $30,000, depending on the final ability of this agency to be able to take on that work. And of course, they still have to do the job of finding individuals and enrolling them. But the name of the agency really was not provided accurately last time. The correct agency's name is URC, but the information regarding the RFP selection process, the funding amounts, and the inclusion under DSH is all correct. So it's just a correction on the name. The board will see this contract once the final process of contracting negotiations occur with the agency for that amount. It'll come forward in the January contract amendment. Again, just adds it to the original agency list. And as a reminder, the agency is coming from another state. They have a lot of experience in this area, but they're relatively new to our region. The state has indicated they have already met all the standards necessary to contract with the state, so it's just on us to be able to begin working. So nothing else or special, no concerns that we have noted from the state on this provider. So really just URC, and I apologize for the mistake on the slide, the name of it. Okay. And no concern to proceed, I assume. I'm nuts. I'm enthusiastic. I love them. Well, thank you.
See, that's someone who's experienced in front of them. Knows what he's looking for.
Right for the gas.
We're gonna work on the rest.
We're trying.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott, that takes us to you.
All right, good morning, commissioners and everyone else. I'm giving you all an update on the interlocal agreements between the various jurisdictions for services provided by SCRAPS. As of today, we have signed agreements from Liberty Lake, Millwood, Cheney, Rockford, Latah. We've been reaching out multiple times, still have not received a response on Deer Park or Medical Lake. We haven't heard a no. In fact, presented to Medical Lake probably 2 months ago, and everything seemed to be received well. So I'm anticipating it's just a process for them. We have received Klein services for the Fairfield and Airway Heights. Although Airway Heights recently, about 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry, can I ask you to repeat that? You kind of broke up on my end. What was that? You received what back? Sorry.
We received, so from Deer Medical Lake, we have not received a signed interlocal yet, but I had presented to Medical Lake and they received it well, had a number of questions. So I'm anticipating it's just a timing of getting the agreement executed on their end, but we don't have anything for the board to take action on for those two jurisdictions right now. The Fairfield did respond back and declined to renew services with us. Airway Heights also declined, but about 2 weeks ago, their city administrator did come back and said they're reconsidering. They were looking at maybe doing it themselves, and I think as he and I talked through the financial model, he obtained a better understanding of the nature of the model, so they were reconsidering, but don't know whether Airway Heights will come back or not. The city of Spokane, I heard back from last week. I heard the city council was going to be taking action on it last night. I just received a text this morning from their city administrator that indicated no action was taken. He's anticipating it now to be on Thursday of this week. So that one is still pending. Let me give you a quick rundown of the interlocal agreements. The interlocal agreements with, I'll do all the jurisdictions.
Hang on, Scott. I want to say something.
I got a text yesterday from Councilman Cathcart that said he's still waiting for numbers on the contract so that they can approve it and stuff. So I don't know what that means, but I'm hoping that you do. But that's a text that he sent me yesterday, saying he's trying to push it through, but is waiting for numbers.
Okay, and Alex, I've communicated all that with Alex Scott. He's been in direct communication with their council, so I'm not sure what on their end they are still waiting for, but it's all delineated within the contract. So I'll go through the main body of the interlocal agreements that we have already signed. This is very consistent with what was presented to the board about 3 months ago when we started on this little pursuit. The terms are all 5-year terms. They do have termination for convenience clauses that are both for the jurisdictions. Our original proposal to them was the jurisdictions must give us 90 days notice prior to the end of the year, any calendar year. The counties was a 90-day at any point in time. I had a number of the jurisdictions request if we could sync and align those two termination provisions, which we agreed to. It's seemed fair from my perspective that we are both targeting end of year, 90 days prior to provide notice. So it seemed like a reasonable request. In the ordinances as well, or in the interlocal as well, it requires the cities to adopt animal control ordinances that are substantially consistent with the county. We are providing them annual and monthly reports. That's pretty much on the activity basis for all the services that Scraps provides. And that's also aligned with how our financial structure works for them. And then it is all the interlocals are full cost recovery. I was very directioned by the board to say we must be recovering for full cost of services. And then we've also formalized our Scraps Advisory Board in all the interlocal agreements. If you remember from the previous interlocal agreements that some of them had expired, a handful of them mentioned an advisory board, many of them didn't, and they weren't consistent. So now we have a consistent advisory board and their functions and duties spelled out in the interlocal agreements. So those are the main highlights of the interlocals. I will jump to the city of Spokane and highlight some of the changes that we have agreed to with them. I would say at the end of the day, it doesn't create any issues with our ability to provide consistent services across all jurisdictions. They asked for the ability to provide 6 months notice before the end of any given calendar year if they want to terminate. And I held firm with what the board had directed, that the county will be able to provide notice at 90 days at any point during a calendar year. And that's in section 10 of the agreement. In attachment A of the agreement, which is really our services and our service levels, They had asked that we post our euthanasia policy, which is not a concern. We had already planned on doing that this year, and the team has worked on something that's very consistent with our practice today. They had also asked that if the county has to euthanize due to space capacity, that we provide them 3 days notice of that action, business days. And in doing so, the city has the option to take ownership of an animal. If they don't notify the county, then we proceed on with what we would be doing. In section 3 of attachment A, they also wanted the ability to set their own pet licensing fees. Most jurisdictions just follow what the county's licensing fees are, but nothing precludes us from having a jurisdiction do their own. So we agreed, as long as they provide us proper notice, because we have to get those licensing fees updated in what we call sector, so that we're appropriately, sector and our animal licensing software. So we just wanted to make sure we have notice from them well in advance so that we can get them. Other than that, there's some additional language in the euthanasia stuff, but at the end of the day, it still does not, it's still consistent with our practices and our approach across all jurisdictions. So those are the primary ones. There was a lot more requests, but we were pretty clear that that was about as far as we can go, because we needed to be able to provide consistent services. So on your consent agenda for this afternoon, you'll have a Liberty Lake, Millwood, Cheney, Rockford, and Layton interlocals. There is a placeholder for the city of Spokane. So I'd look to the board to see what your desire is, if you want to hold off until the city signs their interlocal agreement, or if you want to take action on the interlocal agreement that is on the consent agenda this afternoon.
I'd rather hold off.
It added to Thursday, right?
They're
Yeah,
meeting
because they're not meeting till Thursday,
Oh,
at 11.
so.
They would still be after us.
Well, maybe we
Typically
need to,
don't.
yeah, maybe there was no major issue, they just needed a little more info, but I just am concerned that we find out why the vote wasn't taken, or if maybe they were always planning to do it on Thursday. I don't know.
No, I think I heard on the news, they were supposed to take it up last night.
So I just wanna maybe check in
I don't want to be signing anything
Right.
that they aren't.
if there's any
Yet.
concerns, we need to know about that. So,
So I think we'll be striking item 5GG on today's agenda.
So just if they approve it Thursday, I assume we approve it in January. Is that the thought?
We could put it on the 6th.
Work for me.
yeah, that works.
I do know that my last conversation with Alex Scott is that a couple of the city council members asked for a cap on their fees. He acknowledged, even asking me, he said that's probably not going to be doable, but he needed to ask, and I reaffirmed that's not doable. We got to do full cost recovery. But I will tell you what I've emphasized with every single jurisdiction is we have a laser-like focus on our costs at scraps, and knowing that we're providing a service to all the other jurisdictions, we need to be cost conscious. We need to be good stewards of their funds. So we will continue to ensure that we're doing our best approaches to managing our costs as it relates to animal control and our animal care and control facility, so that we don't have unanticipated major costs coming through that none of the jurisdictions were expecting. So any of the jurisdictions are in that same boat where they want to be able to have some predictability as best they can. And so we need to be able to show them and demonstrate that as well.
Can I ask just a related question? Have we filled officially the scraps director position, and when would that individual be starting?
Yes, Ronnie Schlab it's filled, and he started actually on Monday last week.
Great.
Yep. So we're letting him get his feet wet and learning all the ropes and getting to know all the employees out there and getting his arms around all of the things that we're doing here. And you'll be seeing him before too long coming in front of you.
Be great. Once all the contracts are signed with the other jurisdictions, like having a little meet and greet with him would be great.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we will strike item 5GG from today's agenda and we'll approve all the other ones.
Okay, thanks, board.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the items that are on our agenda. Any miscellaneous today before we go into executive sessions? Yeah, you're ready. Think we have any, we covered everything kind of yesterday, so. Okay,
2 executive session items today. They're both pending and potential litigation. No action is anticipated for either. 10 minutes for each for a total of 20 minutes. First group would be Matt Folsom, Scott Simmons, Jeff McMorris, Mike Sparber, Devin Curda, Chris Anderson, Sheriff John Knowles, Under Sheriff Richie, and Dan Gadd. The second group is the same, except we're switching out Chris Anderson for Nathan McCorkle, adding Chief Hoop. And Ashley Cloud for both. Thank you, Ashley.
Would care of them? Would we add?
And Pat Bell. Thank you. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Ashley.
thanks. Okay, we're gonna go into executive session for pending potential litigation for 10 minutes each on those two items with those people that I've already discussed. So at the end of that, we will adjourn for the morning and see everybody back for our 2 o'clock. Thank you all. All those services item.
No, it's